Hello, this is Mathey Talks. I'm your host, Matt Frawley, and I'm very excited this morning to be talking to Rachel Schwartz, who is a sophomore here at Mathey. And we could talk about her recent haircut, which made me not recognize you the first time I saw you this semester. You used to have quite long hair. But we're not going to talk about this morning.
It's not the first time it happened.
Not the first time. Instead, we're talking about your family, which I came to know about through your housing application when you first came to Mathey. You have two lesbian parents, and on your housing application you wrote that down just because you wanted to make sure that you were with a roommate who would be okay with that.
Yeah.
So when we started Mathey Talks, we were talking this fall, and I asked if you would come on and talk about that. So here you are, and I really appreciate you coming in. I know I've got a lot to learn. In fact, before we started filming, I was asking some questions about what to say, what not to say, just to be respectful.
Yeah.
And we decided not to stop that conversation so you could educate me in real time here. So, so tell us about just growing up and coming here to Princeton. What it's been like?
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure to be here, and that idea about just sort of like letting the conversation flow and talking about terms as they come up.
Right.
I think that I've been coming out since as long as I can remember.
Right.
About my family.
Right.
And so I think that's helped shape who I am in some ways, and has helped me think about how powerful my everyday language can be.
Right.
Me just being honest about my family and open, it helps raise visibility for gay families.
Right.
And we're in a moment of huge change, a lot of new marriage equality is happening, which is great. So, yeah.
Well, let me stop there. I mean, so there's a role for advocacy, but I was thinking about the interview this morning, because as I was telling Rachel, I don't know if I've been more excited about an interview, and also at the same time more nervous, because I want to be respectful. But that kind of plays into the fact that for you, it's just normal. I mean, like you just want to be treated. This is your family, but it's probably hard to get that because everyone's either fascinated or angry or repulsed. You know what I mean? Like you get this whole range of reactions, and if you just want to, you want to be normal.
Well, I think that it's been clear, that my there was just a certain point when I was little. I don't quite remember like a specific conversation, but a certain point when it's like, well, your family is different from most people's, and I have gotten all different kinds of reactions. But I really, and I can't speak for everyone who has a not traditional heterosexual family. But I really, I welcome questions. People are sometimes really afraid to ask.
Right.
And I feel like if you have a question, just put it out there.
Right.
That's totally fine. And I have gotten all different kinds of reactions. Sometimes people don't quite get it. You can kind of see the cogs turning, not quite clicking yet. I like seeing like the moment of realization when people understand. And more, I've realized I can just say my mom's, and I see that people get it.
Right.
But in general, we live in a heteronormative society, and people just assume, and even like last night I was filling out the application to be part of psych studies. I need that for credit for one of my classes, and it says what's your mother's highest level of education, what's your father's highest level of education, and I don't know, I feel like that's something that really should change, and not just for families like mine. A lot of people have single parents, a lot of people weren't raised by parents, they have guardians, or all different kinds of situations. I really like to welcome questions, and I have gotten some fun, interesting responses before. A few of my favorites. Once, a mom at my school I mentioned, she asked, oh, what does your father do?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, actually, I have 2 moms. And she said, did your parents get divorced? Thinking that I was talking about
right.
a stepmom.
Right.
And actually, a few weeks before that, my moms had gotten married. And I said, no, actually, they recently got married.
Right.
In that strange little period of time in California, like between the first ruling on marriage and Prop 8, they got married. I have been greeted with high fives, which I think is a funny one. People aren't always sure what to do, but it's, a positive reaction, people trying to show some sort of support, and really, I think it's not clear how to articulate that, you're trying to be supportive.
Right. So can I ask you about that? Because I was worrying about that as well, because I think you can anticipate and not understand, but just I think anticipate the I would say conservative reaction that that's against same-sex family, whereas I think there could also be kind of a condescension from the other side when they're trying to show a positive reaction or support. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, the high five is one of those.
Exactly.
I also once got, oh my God, have you seen The Kids Are All Right? Which is, it's a movie about, I don't know if you've seen it, it's a gay family, there are 2 moms, but the main conceit of the film is that one of the moms is having an affair with the kid's sperm donor.
Okay.
And so I was like, yeah, I've seen it, but neither of my moms is having an affair with Mark Ruffalo.
Right.
And I guess the most sort of condescending one, but a very entertaining one, was, oh my God, I love lesbians. That's one that's gone down in the books.
Right.
Yeah, and I haven't really been met with many hostile reactions. I think that, I don't know if people get that far if those are their feelings towards homosexual marriage and families, because I think most people like that haven't ever met someone who's a part of a gay family, and I have had some sort of like incredulous responses, like, wow, like I've just never met anyone, and I think that that's true for a lot of people, but it comes as more of a shock, I think, for some people than others. But I haven't been met with any hostility at Princeton, and I did grow up in a pretty, socially liberal community.
Yeah, I was thinking if there's a place probably to be, LA's probably.
Yeah, and I went to, for elementary school especially, I went to kind of like a hippy-dippy school.
Right.
So they're all groovy there.
So you mentioned this before, so, I mean, again, when you're growing up initially, this is just the way things are. When was that first realization that, okay, maybe this wasn't the norm?
Yeah, I think as I was starting to go to school, that started to become clear. Just, not everyone has 2 moms.
Right.
And I knew that other people had dads.
Right.
But I guess I just hadn't, ever. It's true. It's just, it's just my life.
Right.
That's what it is. And then I think more and more I understood what sort of is unique about my family, my relationship with my sperm donor. That's one thing people ask me about a lot, and people are usually kind of trepidatious about it. But that's really fine.
So is that someone that you know, or
yeah?
Okay.
His name is David. He and so we're just good family friends.
Right.
And I feel really lucky that I've grown up knowing him. Not we don't have a super close relationship, but and getting to know his kids as well. That's the kind of part that's a little bit trippy for me sometimes. Is actually I have 2 half brothers. Right. And a couple years ago, I went to Leo's bar mitzvah, and I met all of my biological extended family, which was really.
And they knew. Who you were.
Yeah, they knew. My family was there, and we had this kind of special role and relationship. But so Isaac and Leo are getting older, and now I think Isaac's old enough, and they kind of both understand like who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Before it's like, oh, we're going to California, like we're visiting like Rachel and her mom's, and you know they're just like family friends.
Right.
Not in any sort of secretive way.
Right.
But David did say to me, or maybe he said it to my mom. My mom said to me that they were kind of interested in having some sort of like relationship with me, which I found really exciting. And I spent some time with them in Brooklyn at the end of last year, just hanging out, and it was really fun. I
That's
hope
great.
that I don't know, we're gonna be like cousins, I guess. I feel like would be the closest analogy.
So let me ask you a question. When you mentioned the sperm donor and David, right?
Yeah.
Is the name. So there's a subtle natural law perspective that or a question I have for you, because with the issue of same-sex families, they there's the theory that, well, okay, if it's two guys, well, the child needs a female influence, and for you need a male influence. Do you buy into that, or do you think that's kind of bunk? You don't know what you don't have, or you know what I mean?
I think I can't speak for everyone, but in my experience, I never felt like I was lacking some sort of father figure, and I don't think that that's had any negative impact on who I am today. And I think part of the reason is that I never felt like there was any lack or any mystery. I think that's one thing that's been very lucky for me. I think that anonymous sperm donors are the right choice for a lot of people, but I personally am glad that I've always known David. I feel like sometimes this like mystery of like, who is this person, what part of them is me, can be confusing and have a great impact on your experience growing up. But since I always sort of knew that was helpful, and I think it was less of a male-female issue. And I think I definitely have had wonderful men in my life as I was growing up. I wouldn't say I have any particular father figures, but I feel like that notion is like a heteronormative notion that everyone needs a mother and a father.
Right, exactly. How about an extension of that would be, well, you're going to have a particular type of, any child's going to have a particular type of relationship with their father and a particular type of relationship with mother, which is, obviously not to be true, because who knows, what kind of relationship you have. But we tend to think, oh, the son's going to be closer with the mom perhaps, and then have this relationship with the dad, and vice versa.
Get Freudian about it.
Exactly, very much so. So a natural question would be, okay, you're not going to have that, but your parents are two different people, so you're going to have two different relationships in a way.
I definitely have different relationships with my parents. One thing people ask me about a lot is, what do you call them?
Mom, you could be condescending, like jokingly, we could be like mom X and mom Y to mom 2.
I know that, and like I know other like gabies, as they're colloquially called, and some call like one mom, mommy, or mama, like Ima, like different names. I never did that. I kind of like when you're with your friends, you're like mommy, or it's like, oh, mom. I'm like, it's like, I'm sick, mommy. It's like it's just for me. There's like some emotional inflection with that. And if I could just specify, I'll use their names, which is like not that confusing, I think. Or they're I have nicknames for them as well. But that's one thing people are really like confused about, and it's like true. Sometimes they'll be like mom, and then they'll both respond. But then I said Vanessa,
which is actually more efficient.
Yeah.
That's right. So,
yeah, exactly.
Right.
I have two people attending.
Right at the same time. How about here at Princeton? You said it, in general it's been great. I mean, just in this with this dynamic of your parents. But again, you said there's when you're filling out forms, there's ways that we are kind of we have a bias or a prejudice just because certain norms that we have. But general, how has it been? Good.
Yeah, it has been good. I think like no one should be ashamed for having those notions, because I also have them. I mean, my first thought isn't like, oh, maybe, like I bet you have two dads. Like that's not my first thought.
Right.
I mean, I think that I am like pretty aware of the fact that people have different types of families. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I've had positive responses. I did have one funny interaction last year. Someone was, a little bit surprised, and this was one I'd never heard before, actually. He asked me, so were you an orphan? And that was a very, interesting response. I've never been asked that before. I mean, I suppose, are you adopted? Makes a little bit more sense, but I think he was maybe a little bit discombobulated.
Right.
But no, nothing ever, no really negative reactions ever. And I started to do LGBT peer education panels this year, and so far I've really enjoyed that. Telling the story about my parents, I think that it's really great to have a diversity of stories on the panels.
Right.
There's a point after we go through sort of the resources that Princeton offers for the LGBTQ community, we take some time to share about ourselves. And I feel it feels really good to sort of give another perspective, and I think also to give a little bit of an idea about what a queer person's future might be like.
Right.
They can have families.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
I think that's a lot of things. Like from my friends, I think I've gotten the sense that a lot of parents worry about that. About my kid's coming out, they're never going to have family.
Right.
But I hope that sharing about my family, maybe I'll end up being able to help someone who's coming out, assuage their parents' fears about grandkids.
So that's really great with the LGBT panels, and so with you're going to be an advocate, just because of who you are and your family.
Yeah.
Does it get tiring, or is it? I mean, you have a mission here.
Yeah, I do, and I think that's a totally valid question. Could it be tiring? But I think that, I don't know, I've been looking at the Myers-Briggs test lately, and then there are these interpretations of the types, and I'm the champion, which is like being the champion for a cause. So it fits well. I don't know if you could say which formed the other. I think probably growing up and having this be my experience influenced that. But I think advocacy is really important to me, and I think I have a special attention to one-on-one everyday interactions, which I think a lot of times people say pick your battles, skip over the little ones. But I feel like the little battles are really important, and it doesn't always have to be a battle.
Right.
But I think social change, you really, when you can really see it in personal interactions, that's kind of when you've made it. And so I think trying to shift those types of interactions to be better
or educational. Educational.
Right. I don't want to be pedantic about it. I really, one thing I take pride in about myself is that I really try to not let anything slide by. When I hear someone say something that's wrong, that is a little bit off, that might be making assumptions, or even if someone's unknowingly creating what we talk about a lot at the center is about creating a safe space, and language is a really powerful way to do that. you can be really inclusive, but you can also be exclusive and hurtful.
Right.
And so I try really hard to not let those moments slide by. And I think, I feel really lucky. I grew up in a strong feminist household as well, and so I had a sense from when I was pretty young about sort of gender and sexuality issues and how that would come up in one-on-one interactions. And I remember in 6th grade, man, the 6th grade boys in my school were so awful. They were just like suddenly, they learned that that there was something different about them, or they had some sort of like power as males, and suddenly they just became awful. They were so bad. I just remember I was so tiny, like yelling at this boy, calling him a sexist pig, but I just didn't know what else to do. It was like some, burgeoning passion for social justice.
Right.
But over time, it was very frustrating because I could tell something was wrong, but I didn't know how to address that. And so sort of through middle school, and especially at the beginning of high school, I started to really sort of do my own research on feminist issues, and especially the types of issues that that were kind of common among my age group, to figure out how to talk about them. And it's so frustrating when you have an interaction where maybe you let something slide by, or you speak up but you don't feel articulate, or you get shot down by a question. And I didn't want to have any more of those, like, oh, I should have said blank moments. And so I've just practiced in my normal interactions with people.
So, and do you find, because a lot of times, I can see a lot of times that people, they're not thinking, they're not intentionally trying to be rude or disrespectful, or it's just, and so you say something, are they receptive? Mostly, now that you practice and probably have more of an art to how to educate them.
A little bit more subtle than just screaming when I'm 12.
Right.
Yeah, I think, it's a mix. I think sometimes people get defensive.
Because they are caught off guard.
Because, they're caught off guard. But, my goal is to sort of, like, open up a conversation. I think that's a, really good way to create awareness. It's not just check your privilege, as is sort of like a buzz phrase these days. I think that is an important thing, but talking about, what does that mean? It's not like a sort of a reprimand. Hopefully, like, I've definitely learned a lot in those kinds of discussions, and I know I've really benefited from them, like stopping and trying to unpack some of these issues. And so, since I've benefited from it, I feel like I hope other people will as well.
No, I agree with you, because when I was in college, I remember some of the most meaningful interactions were with this one student. I was a senior, I was an RA, he was a freshman, and we just became very good friends. And I remember once he was a black student, and I said something just stupid, and he stopped me, and he didn't get mad or anything. He just educated. He just said, hey, that's offensive to me, and I don't appreciate it. And I was like, I felt horrible. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But the way he did it was based on respect, trust, and I remember that conversation. I can't remember any of the big presentations, panels, although panels are good. But it was that one-on-one interaction I had with him that really helped me significantly. So I think you're right. I think it is those types of interactions that really can have the most power, or have the most long-lasting effect. Really affect change, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, I try and strike a balance between sort of using my personal story and identity as a tool on that. When that first started to become an issue was in middle school. It was very big to call things gay. Oh, that's so gay. And around me, people would be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And it's like, well, I'm not actually asking you to apologize to me. Sort of think about it in a bigger way. and think about, decency, being respectful, and what that kind of phrase implies. So I think people's reaction would be assuming, oh, I'm offending you. And the point is, I don't want that to be what people come away with, because I don't want people to just censor their language in front of me. I want people to hopefully think about their language and make better choices because they want to be more respectful. Yeah.
That's neat. Well, we're getting close to our end of the conversation, which is sad. This has really been great. But what question did I ask? What would you want to say here?
I guess I think one thing, when we talk about coming out, it's usually the time when I came out to my friends, to my parents. But coming out is actually a perpetual process. I've been coming out for my whole life, and I still come out all the time. Because we still live in a world where people assume people are straight, cisgender. And so I think, being prepared for that, but also, you can make a difference just by being honest about who you are. And that's not to say that's a pressure for people in the closet. Like, this is a reason you must come out. It's a responsibility. I don't know if it's so much a responsibility as something you can take pride in when you do come out, and when you keep coming out throughout your whole life. One quick story. There was one time when I was in the closet about my family. I was on a family trip to China with one of my moms and another gay family, 2 dads and their 2 daughters. And everything was going great, having a good time. We met our guide in Beijing. We were going on a tour through the street market, and we were set to spend the next 4 days with Brenda. We ran into a Peking opera display, and my mom asked, oh, weren't the the female roles traditionally played by men? And she said, yes, that's true, but they stopped that when they took care of the gay problem. And so we all kind of froze. We didn't really know what to do, and a couple minutes later she said to my mom, oh, what does your husband do? And she just sort of choked out, he's a lawyer. And for the next 4 days, we were in this sort of strange ruse charade. And some of it was kind of fun, pretending Sammy and Lizzie were my sisters. But, we got mixed up on how many pets we have, and, it put Steve in this, weird uncle position. And then I, wasn't calling Jamie dad. It wasn't really working that well. But also, it really, by the end, it was exhausting. And it felt really wrong, dishonest. Brenda was a really great person. And it seemed like in a lot of ways she had a very open mind. And in general, both of our families definitely think about being open as, sort of a thing about teaching, about, raising awareness. And, we'd miss this opportunity. And so, it's important, of course, to consider safety in coming out. But after that experience, I really committed to not saying parents when I could say moms, which is an easy way to sort of slide around that little tangential conversation that you have to have. But yeah, that's, just trying to make change with just being who I am.
And yeah, because like you said, when you were trying, it was exhausting, it wasn't true, it just didn't feel pure is the right word, but it wasn't who you were.
It was dishonest.
The charade was just, it was dishonest. So I appreciate that, because now you can be, you're more alive by just being who you are and present and being an actor.
And in this political moment, I really feel very, proud of this identity of mine. Like, when the Supreme Court was discussing DOMA, and I was like, you know, listening on the radio all day while I was supposed to be working.
Right.
And they were like, kept talking about the 40,000 like children of gay families, and like, you know, how like what's wrong with their lives, or how, you know, not having marriage is bad for them or good for them. And I was like, you're talking about me,
right.
you know. And I did find a way to get on the radio to talk about it, actually. But yeah, it's like, it's an interesting moment. I feel a little bit like I'm in the spotlight, but on a social justice level, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we come to a close. So I hope you'll come back and talk
absolutely.
with us. This has been really great. So I really thank you again, Rachel Schwartz, and thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right.
Thanks, Matt.